Alright, so good evening, Allison. It's good to see you again. So in our last session, we had gone over that you've had some pretty traumatic experiences. And lately, you've been still having some of those symptoms that started after that trauma. So
Which trauma?
Exactly. So today we're going to go over what's called the PTSD Symptom Scale Interview, or PSSI, with some lifestyle components. I chose this interview because not everyone who has some symptoms of after trauma qualifies for PTSD. So taking the scale will help us determine if you do have actual PTSD, or if you qualify for PTSD based on the DSM-5. So the first questions that we're going to ask are about re-experiencing. Do you have any questions before we get started?
No, but if I do, I'll ask.
Okay, yeah. Feel free to interrupt me at any time. So the scale is marked from 0 to 3. 0 meaning not very much at all. 1, once per week. 2, 2 to 4 times per week. And 3, 5 or more times per week. All you have to do is tell me the amount of times in the week when
So 0, 1, 2, or 3.
Yes.
I just have to tell you the numbers.
Then how many times in the past week you've experienced any of these symptoms after I asked the question.
Okay. But I can just give you the numbers.
Right. You don't have to.
I don't have to say, all right, yeah, it was 4 times on Wednesday. And okay.
Yes.
I can just say 2.
Yes, like 2 times in the last week. Have you experienced any recurrent or intrusive distressing thoughts or recollections about the trauma?
Yes.
Okay, can you give me
3.
3 times this last
The
week?
number 3, which is 3 to 5 times, right?
Yes, okay. You can just tell me the times per week. Yeah, that's fine. Have you been having any recurrent or bad dreams or nightmares about the trauma?
No.
Have you had any experience of suddenly reliving the trauma, flashbacks of it, or acting or feeling as if the trauma were reoccurring?
2 to 4 times.
In this last week?
Yes.
Have you been intensely or emotionally upset when reminded of the trauma?
Yes, 3 to 5 times.
In the last 2 weeks, have you had any intense physical reactions, such as becoming sweaty, heart palpitations, when you were reminded of the trauma?
Feeling sick to my stomach. 2 to 3 times.
In the last week?
Yes.
Have you been persistently making efforts to avoid thoughts or feelings associated with the trauma?
2 to 3 times.
Have you been persistently making efforts to avoid activities, situations, or places that remind you of trauma?
Yes. 2 times.
Are there any important aspects about the trauma that you still cannot recall?
No.
Have you markedly lost interest in free time activities since the trauma?
Yes. 3 to 5 times.
Have you felt detached or cut off from others around you since the trauma?
From the people who did the trauma? Yes.
How about just others in general?
No.
Okay. Have you felt any future plans or hopes have changed because of your...
Yes.
Okay.
And I dwell on that 3 to 5 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, a day.
A day? Okay. So these next questions are going to be about arousal. Have you been having any persistent difficulty in falling or staying asleep?
No.
Okay. Have you been continuously irritable or have had outbursts of anger?
No.
In the past 2 weeks, have you had any persistent difficulties in concentrating?
Yes.
Okay.
Multiple times.
Okay. Are you overly alert to check to see who's around you since the
No.
trauma? Have you been jumpier or more easily startled?
No.
So these next ones are going to be about your mood. So in the last 2 weeks, have you contemplated suicide?
No.
Have you had any racing thoughts in your head or that were unable to stop?
Yes.
About how many?
A couple times.
Okay. Have you felt the lack of need for sleep or had increased energy or unusual social behaviors?
No.
Okay. Have you been unable to motivate yourself or had a severe lack of energy or feelings of hopelessness?
Yes.
How many times did you say?
Wow, multiple times.
Okay. You were easily distracted by things around you that you had trouble on concentrating or staying on track.
Yes.
On how many days do you smoke cigarettes or other tobacco products?
I don't.
Okay. On how many days have you had more than a few sips of beer, wine, or a drink containing alcohol?
I don't.
Okay. On how many days do you use marijuana?
I don't.
Which of the following substances have you used, if you've used any of these? Cocaine, crack, heroin, amphetamines, methamphetamines, hallucinogens, inhalants, or any other illicit substances?
No.
Okay. Medications have you used that were not prescribed for you, which you took more than you were supposed to?
Nope.
Okay. Your view of yourself has been changing, felt unsteady, or have had feelings of negative self-perception?
Yes. Multiple times.
Okay. Your view of the world has been changing, felt unsteady, or had feelings of negative self-perception?
Absolutely.
Your values of the world or moral judgments have been changing?
No.
Name your dominant goals or self-ideals of what you must do, who I must become, or how shall I do it?
Name my dominant goals
Yeah.
of what I must do.
Yeah, so your dominant goals are self-ideals, and then the next 3 questions are examples, like what I must do is fill in the blank.
What I must do is keep busy and take care of myself and not focus on what was, but focus on what is.
Who I must become.
I must become independent from that situation.
Okay. And how shall I do it?
By engaging in positive activities with others, as well as in books or what I read, music I listen to, exercise, etc.
Good. List your greatest strengths. How might your strengths and coping skills aid you in recovery?
Greatest strength is the trauma was then, and this is now. So live in the present, not in the past.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, good. So that is the final part of our questionnaire. The last section was lifestyle. I didn't know if you caught on that.
Yeah,
It
I
wasn't.
did.
Yeah. And so I'll leave you with your greatest strength, because that's always good things to remember. And I will score this, and then we'll go over it in our next session.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today.